boys and girls, it's me, it's Andre here again. Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you had a really good Easter and had fun in the sun, and I hope you stayed safe and stayed at home. Also, thank you to all those people who sent in their pictures or of their drawings or the Lego. Someone did Lego, which was awesome. Someone also did something outside in the garden of the Easter scene. So thanks for all of those that you sent in. If you haven't sent one in, please do send it to me so I can see it, and we'll put it up on the Facebook page with permission. But now, boys and girls, you may have noticed something different about me today. Yeah, my hair. Look how long it's got. Being stuck in the house and not being able to get out, I haven't been able to get to the hairdresser. And look how long my hair has got. It's crazy, isn't it? Imagine what it's going to be like in a few more weeks' time. It'll be down to my feet. Now, but boys and girls, here's the thing. That reminds me of a story in the Bible which I'm going to share with you today. It's about a man called Samson. Would you like to hear about Samson? Samson? Is that not your phone? Why are you going to talk about your phone? Bob, what are you doing here? It's not Samsung, it's Samson, a man in the Bible. Would you go away? Oh, okay. Sorry about that, boys and girls. Yes, Samson. He was a special man of God. He was one of the Israelites, but he was a special Israelite. He was a Nazarite. Gotta be right with Nazarite, on iron. Stick it in your drain pipe. All right. Bob, not Hammerite, Nazarite. Oh. He was a Nazarite, and Nazarites were very special people. They were dedicated to God, set aside for God, and one of the things that he couldn't do was he couldn't cut his hair. He wasn't allowed to, but also his hair was the source of his strength. Samson was a really strong guy, super strong. I mean, one time he broke the city gates off and he carried them up away on his shoulders. Amazing! How strong is that? And the secret of his strength was in his hair. If he cut his hair, he would lose his strength. Now, Samson fell in love with a lady called Delilah, and she was a Philistine. She was Frankenstein! No, she wasn't Frankenstein, she was a Philistine. Bob, why are you here? This story isn't about you. There's no lions in the story of Samson. Wait a second, there is a story about a lion in the story of Samson. Samson was able to tear a lion apart with his bare hands. That's how strong he was. Would you like me to do that to you? I'm out of here. Oh, there we go. Now we got rid of him. Now, boys and girls, Samson fell in love with this lady called Delilah. And she was a Philistine. And the Philistines weren't God's people. The Israelites were God's people. The Philistines were the enemies of God's people. They didn't like God's people at all. But Samson fell in love with this Philistine, and he wasn't allowed to date a Philistine or marry a Philistine. That wasn't allowed. He was supposed to stay with his own people because they believed the same things. The Philistines didn't believe the same things as Samson and the Israelites, which is why God said, stay within your own people, marry them, and then you'll all be on the same page. But no, Samson was stubborn, and he wanted this woman Delilah. But all Delilah's Philistine friends said to her, Samson, or Delilah, why don't you find out the secret of Samson's strength, and then we can trap him and kill him? Isn't that awful? Now, Delilah is Samson's wife. She wouldn't do that, would she? Actually, she did. Delilah said this to Samson. Samson, if you really love me, then you tell me the secret of your strength. So Samson said to Delilah, okay, if you take 7 bowstrings that haven't been dried and tie me up with them, then I'll lose all my strength. So Delilah does that. He ties him up with 7 bowstrings, and she says to him, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. But because Samson's secret of his strength was in his hair and not being tied up, Samson was able to break the bowstrings and kick all the Philistines out. And that annoyed Delilah. Delilah said this, you made a fool out of me. Now tell me, what's the secret to your strength? Delilah sounds a lot like Bob, doesn't she? Interesting that. Anyway, Samson says to Delilah, well, here's the secret to my strength. If you take new ropes and tie me with new ropes, then you will I'll be very weak, and I will lose all my strength. So Delilah goes and ties him up with all new ropes, and she says this to him: Samson, the Philistines are here, you better get them. And because Samson's strength wasn't about being tied up with ropes, he was able to break those ropes out and beat up the Philistines. And Delilah said the same thing to Samson again. You made a fool out of me. Now tell me, what's the secret to your strength? So Samson said, well, if you take my hair and put it into a thing that makes fabric, that makes materials and clothes and stuff, like it's called a loom, take 7 braids of my hair, stick it in a loom, and then I will lose all my strength. So she goes and does it. And she does the same thing. Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And again, because you had to cut Samson's hair for him to lose his strength, Samson was able to get up and kick the Philistines out. Then Delilah was really annoyed with Samson, and she said this to him: Samson, this is the 3rd time you made a fool out of me. What's the secret to your strength? Nag, 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 nag. And Samson then, because she nagged so much, said, okay, fine. Here's the secret to my strength. If you cut my hair, I will be weak. So what did Delilah do? When he was asleep, she cut his hair all off. And then she shouted, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. Samson got up and he thought, I'm going to kick them out again. He hadn't realised his hair was cut, but he was weak. And he didn't have his strength anymore. And the Philistines got him and they bound him up and they took out his eyes. Ugh! So he couldn't see anymore. And all his strength was gone. And they brought him in where they had a big party. And he said, please let me stand beside a pillar so I know where I am. And he prayed to God and he said, God, remember me. Give me back my strength one last time so that I can have vengeance upon these people who are your enemies. And God gave him his strength back, and he pushed against the pillars, and the whole place came down on top of everyone, and all God's enemies were wiped out in that room. Now, boys and girls, what do we learn from that? Well, there's a couple of things about marriage later on in life which we're not going to go into now, because I think maybe you're a wee bit young for that, about being with people who are on the same page as you and believe the same things as you. It's very important to do that. But also, here's the thing, is this: Samson made a mistake. He was told not to go and marry the Philistine because he wasn't one of their God's people, and it would mess up everything because they're not on the same page, they're not thinking the same way. The Philistines believed in all these other gods that didn't even exist. Samson believed in the real God who does exist, and so there's a whole mess there because he married that woman Delilah. He made a mistake. He disobeyed God, and he did what he shouldn't have done. And there are consequences of that. He had to pay the price for some of his mistakes. But at the very end, he called out to God and said, God, remember me. And God did. God gave him his strength back. And the point of that is, boys and girls, we will make mistakes. All the time we will make mistakes. It happens in our life. But God is gracious to us. He gives us things that we don't deserve. And when we cry out to him and say, Lord, I'm sorry for the mistakes, then he will remember us and he'll forgive us for those mistakes. And then we will be able to be useful for God again. So I want you to remember that you will make mistakes in your life. We all do. Everyone makes mistakes. But the point is that we come back to God and say, God, I'm sorry. Would you remember me? Would you forgive me? And help me to be useful for you again. Now, boys and girls, I want you to here's your art craft activity for this week. Why don't you draw me the scene from Samson and Delilah? Give me something about the scene of that and send it in to me. Do something creative with that. I'd love to see that. Only if you want to, because I know there's lots of other things you're doing as well. But if you want to do that, that would be great, and I'd love to see them. Also, maybe you might want to get your parents to read the story of Samson and Delilah to you. It is in Judges chapter 16. You may want to skip out the first 3 verses, start at verse 4, and then continue on and read them the story of Samson and Delilah. Boys and girls, I hope you have a great rest of the week. See you on Sunday.